Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger, and up next, the death sentence, the untold story of the dual threat quarterback. Let's go. Let me do something at the beginning, a little housekeeping, if you will, um, so that we have clarity as we proceed through this series of videos. When I'm speaking about a dual threat quarterback, I'm speaking about specific players who are used in a specific way, because that's really what the dual threat quarterback is. The dual threat label is not universal. It's not. It's only applicable to several quarterbacks over the last 20 to 25 years. Okay. In this first video, I'm going to specifically be speaking about Michael Vick, Cam Newton, and Lamar Jackson. I believe Michael Vick to be the grandfather of the dual threat quarterback, specifically because he was probably the first to be labeled a dual threat quarterback from college and then into the pros. Cam Newton followed suit. Lamar Jackson followed suit. Now, am I saying that there are not other current dual threat quarterbacks in the league? No, I'm not saying that at all. But I want to specifically talk about these three because I think they laid a foundation for the entire death sentence series. Let me do one more thing. Death sentence doesn't mean that the dual threat quarterback is dying out. Death sentence is what I believe to be the label that is the dual threat quarterback. Translation, when a quarterback is labeled a dual threat quarterback at the onset of his career, that is the death sentence. Well, why would I say that? Because that quarterback is handled a certain type of way. So in this video specifically, I'm going to be talking about those three guys, and I'm going to be talking about labeling and handling. You see, Michael Vick was kind of a human highlight, right? People even refer to his time in the league as the Vick experience, specifically in those first 5 or 6 seasons of his career. Cam Newton was a different type of dual threat quarterback. He made it popular to be big and strong and fast and kind of become a downhill runner as a quarterback. And then Lamar Jackson carried on the dual threat label and kind of made it more innovative. Lamar Jackson is probably the most elusive dual threat quarterback. He's probably the most electric. He probably has the best feet as far as quickness of all three, but all three are distinctly different. I'm not saying, let me be very, very clear, because I know I've seen in some comments before where people think that I'm saying something that I'm not. These guys are not the same. They're not even similar in game, even though they are dual threats. But what is similar is the narrative that's around them, or that was around them for Vic and Cam, and the labeling and the handling. You see, what is the label? What is this label that I'm speaking of? Well, a label is any attachment that sticks with that quarterback through their career. And when that quarterback is labeled a dual threat, what that typically comes off as is he's a great runner with the football. And although he has a lot of arm talent, he's not a great passer. That's what the dual threat kind of comes off as. And in fact, if we can be all the way honest, dual threat really says that the run game of the quarterback will offset his inability to be a great passer. That's really what it comes down to. You see, that's why everybody who has mobile ability or mobility, if we put them together, that's why all those guys are not considered dual threats, because the usage is different. You see, When these quarterbacks get labeled that, and like I said, we'll introduce other dual threats in other videos. When they get labeled a dual threat, right? It creates a handling. Well, Blanche, what do you mean by handling? Well, think about like a package that you receive from UPS or FedEx. When you get that box, it may say fragile on top, which kind of indicates that you should handle it with care because what's inside is fragile. Those are called handling instructions. Um, it may say this side up, which means you shouldn't turn the box upside down. Those are called handling instructions because of what? The label. Or maybe you take this analogy. Maybe if you had a nice suit that you bought and you look inside the label, you'll see the name, but also you'll see an additional tag with what? Handling instructions. It may say dry clean only. It may say press with a warm iron. Whatever, the handling tells you how to handle that product. And when the dual threat quarterback is labeled at the onset of their careers, the handling begins. Well, what do I mean? Glad you asked. What I mean is this. The dual threat quarterback, one of the first things I think that happens is they are not really coached. I think that they're not coached, and I think they're more managed. And I think the reason why they're not really coached is because of all the other attachments that come along with the label dual threat. You see, it's very, very clear from Vic to Cam to Lamar Jackson. Here's where the other attachments come in. They were said to be the most athletic, right? The best athlete on the field, electric with the ball in their hands, great runners with the football. They were said to be all of those things, right? And so the term dual threat, even with those positive attachments, really is a backhanded compliment. You know why? Because at the end of it all, you're a quarterback. And the other attachment that comes along with it is inaccurate, which denotes your inability to be a great passer. See, so you're telling me on one side I'm a great athlete and I can run with the ball and I can do all those things. But as the quarterback, you're telling me that I'm inaccurate as a passer. You see, that begins the handling process. And so because of that, what happens is all three of these guys were placed in a certain type of offense with a certain type of OC. Why? Because it's said to be building an offense or being placed into an offense that fits what? Their skill set. Oh, let's go deeper. So the skill set begins with what? Their ability to run, which means their offense is going to highlight their ability to run. Think about it. You see, all three quarterbacks, right? They may have been, the offenses may have been called different things, but they really came down to a read option style or a RPO style. Now, am I saying the other quarterbacks don't do RPO plays? No, I'm not saying that at all. And am I saying they only ran read option and RPOs? I'm not saying that at all either. But what I am saying is their offenses were dominated by those types of plays. And so you're placed into a limiting offense. I'm not in denial that Vic was not always a great passer. Meaning in game is what I mean. Cam was not always a great in-game passer. Lamar has not always been a great in-game passer. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that style of offense is limiting to their development as a passer. Let's go deeper. You see, being managed versus coached simply comes off as I don't want to mess up a good thing. If Vic is balling and he's running the ball all over the place and he's making plays and all those and all that stuff, at Cam, if he's rushing for 100 yards a game and throwing for 2 touchdowns, and Lamar Jackson, rush for 120 yards and throw for 220 yards and he's getting wins. You see, the success of that quarterback is what pushes a coach outside of the realm of coaching. See, because I don't want to mess up the good results. But long term, I create a trajectory that has a cap on what this quarterback can do because they're not being coached. Well, Belanger, man, they've had coaches that tried to help him. No, no, listen to what I'm saying. Having a coach, head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and being coached is different. Okay. You see, the reason why the running quarterback, if you will, or the dual threat quarterback does not really get better as a passer, they don't get markedly better as a passer is this. Because what they do in the off season doesn't correlate to what they do in season. You see, every off season, what do we see from all quarterbacks, but specifically the dual threat guy? We hear about first that they have got a new quarterbacks coach and they're working on technique and they're working on footwork and they're working on 3-step, 5-step, and 7-step drops and they're working on throwing angles and they're working on all of these things that speaks to improving as a passer, right? We even see videos, right, of the quarterback working in the offseason with his wide receivers. Maybe they're down in Miami, maybe they're out in LA, maybe they're at a local university on the practice field, throwing, running routes, and all those kind of things. And it looks real good. It looks really, really good. But oftentimes that's not translating to in-season play. Why? Here's why. Because when I put that quarterback at the beginning of his career in a limiting offense, right? Which emphasizes his ability to run over his ability to pass. What he's doing in the offseason doesn't correlate. You see, because in a read option style or a RPO style, there's not many 3 and 5 and 7-step drops. You follow what I'm saying? So all of the offseason work, it doesn't correlate into OTAs and mini camps and training camps and then in-season play because the style of offense that I'm in is not a style that integrates the things that I'm getting better at in the off season. So when I'm in season playing, it doesn't look like I've improved as a passer. That's why you can see and hear in-game analysis where when that quarterback misses a throw, what do? They flash to the throw, then they show the quarterback's feet and his arm, and they say, look, when he was under pressure, he didn't do this, and look at his feet. His feet is turned this way, and his feet is turned that way, and look at his arm angle. And he's throwing off base, and that's why the pass was overthrown. But hold it. Think about this. Think about this. Are you telling me that by the time, and I'm highlighting a first 5 years, see, because the dual threat quarterback, the first 5 years are probably the most important because it's going to show how they've been handled. Are you telling me that 2 years of college, especially after the rule change, that 2 years of college and 5 years of pro play, this guy is not getting better as a passer? He's making mistakes and overthrows and off base throws and those kind of things in his fourth and fifth year in the pros, which would be equivalent to 6 and 7 years of play. He's still making the same mistakes. He has the same breakdown in technique as he did when he was in college after 7 years of in-season work and off-season work, private quarterbacks coach, organizational quarterback coaching. You're telling me he's not getting better? The reason why is because what he's working on in the offense, in the off-season, is not what he's doing inside the offense, especially when it's that limiting style of offense. And that's the truth. You see, part of that attachment or descriptive of the dual threat quarterback is that he can't read defenses, which means it's questioning his intelligence. He's not a great decision maker, right? That's what's said. Let's just be honest. That's what's being said. It was said about Vic. It was said about Cam. It's been said about Lamar, and it's been said about these other current dual threat guys. And we, like I said, we'll introduce them later. But you know why it doesn't look like they can read defenses? You know why after 5 and 6 and 7 years of ball, that's including their college careers, it doesn't look like they read defenses any better? See, because when I put you in that style of offense, read option, what am I reading? Not the defense downfield. I'm reading the defense in my immediate area. Defensive line, defensive ends, linebackers. That's what I'm reading. In a run pass option, which is the RPO style offense, what am I reading? See, even the name of the play or play style is run first. So I'm not reading downfield because I'm reading what's right in front of me in my immediate area. And so if when I'm in this kind of offense, in and out of every season, how am I getting better? How am I getting better downfield reading if the offense that I'm in is causing me to look at just what's right in front of me? Let's go one more step into this. So now when I'm breaking down film and I'm saying, oh, I missed this throw and that guy was open and in 3 seconds he should be here and in 2 seconds this guy should be over here and the out route should be open and all those kind of things. See, when those things are happening, right? I'm breaking down film, but that doesn't correlate either because in game. See, when I'm breaking down film, I'm looking at what's happening downfield. But when I'm in game, I'm looking at what's right in front of me. That's why it doesn't seem like it's correlating. Now I know I'm no coach, okay? And I don't know all the names of the offenses and all that kind of stuff. But what I do know is those things do not correlate. A read option RPO style of offense where the run game of the quarterback dominates the offense, I'm never going to learn to read downfield. You see, the separating factor from Cam and Lamar and Vic, which are dual threat quarterbacks from the beginning of their careers, there's some other guys, is how they're used. And how they're used is that they become the integral part of the run game. I have a whole video, probably episode 3, about usage. But they become the integral part of the run game. And that's what separates them from all the other mobile quarterbacks, is how they're used. And once they're locked into a particular style of offense, until the organization and the OC says, you know what, we need to figure out how to highlight and develop and improve this guy's throwing ability, they're going to be locked into that style of offense. That's why I'm so glad that the Baltimore Ravens moved off of Greg Roman. Because the dual threat quarterback who's assigned to an offensive coordinator assigned to a certain type of offense has a cap. It does not mean that they can't reach high heights. Doesn't mean that. It simply comes down to those high heights don't get high enough. That's why the true dual threat quarterback has never won a Super Bowl. Remember, I'm not talking about everybody with mobility. I'm talking about the true dual threat quarterback who is assigned that label at the beginning, and that label triggers a handling, which begins with putting them in a particular offense with a particular OC, and they're going to get specific kinds of results. And that's why I believe those guys do not get better as passers. Let me show you a few numbers and we're done. Michael Vick, if you look at his numbers and you look at his career average, Michael Vick is a 50% completion passer. That's not good. And when you look at his first 5 or 6 years of throwing the football in the league, he never even touched 60%. You know why? Because he became an integral part of the run game and he was locked into a particular style of offense. That's why I say these guys aren't getting coached, meaning they're not getting coached really in the area of where they need real improvement. I'm not talking about the private quarterback coach. I'm talking about the team's quarterback coach and the team's OC who should be crafting an offense that can help that quarterback develop as a passer. When you look at Cam is a 60% passer for his career. He hit a high mark in his MVP Super Bowl season, but he'll always revert back to the mean, which is about 60%. Lamar Jackson, on average, is a 63% passer. And I think his numbers took a hit his first year where he was not a starter. But when you look at Lamar Jackson as a passer, he's probably more like a 64, 65% passer. That first year took him down a lot, which plays a part of his average. And I'm okay if he's a 64, 65% passer, only if his volume increases. You see, the numbers that are important to a guy becoming a better passer is going to be his completion percentage, but it's also going to be the number of attempts he had. See, if you are a 65% passer and you're throwing between 375 and 400 attempts per year, there's a cap on your total yards and there's a cap on how much better you become. But if his volume increases, right? And his volume increases to 500 passes a year. Now he's throwing 65%. That means even though his completion percentage did get better, that means he got better as a passer because he's still completing at a rate of 65%, but of 500. See that's the biggest difference. See, if 400 passes and 65% is much lower than 65% of 500. That's why Lamar Jackson's numbers stay low. You see, if you told me that Lamar Jackson over the next 5 years of his contract was going to be at 64, 65%, and you told me that he was going to throw 500 passes per year, 500 plus passes per year, I'm cool with that because his volume of passes are going up and he's staying consistent as a passer. Now, see, now his number of passes go up and his completion percentages start to go down. That means he's not improving as a passer. But as long as he stays consistent at that 64, 65%, I'm cool. Absolutely. And so when you average out his numbers and you remove that first year, he's probably 64, 65%. That's why I'm so glad that he got a new OC. You see, so when I talk about the comparison, when I did that in the cheat code, and this is just a cheat code extension, by the way, when I talked about the comparison, I was not comparing who was the better quarterback. And even now, Vic, Cam, and Lamar, I'm not saying who was the better dual threat quarterback. I'm simply saying that the death sentence is being labeled at the beginning a dual threat quarterback because it starts putting caps on what you're going to do in your career. As we close out, I know Cam Newton went to the Super Bowl, his MVP season. But part of the reason Cam didn't win that Super Bowl is because all year he had to be the ultimate playmaker that was running and passing. And when he gets to that Super Bowl, guess what that defense knows? It's Cam or nothing. That's what they know. It's Cam or nothing. because they understand that the style of offense that Cam was running, just like the style of offense Vic was running, and the style of offense Lamar Jackson had, past tense, been running, at the end of it all, it's going to come down to Lamar or nothing, Cam or nothing. So Denver, all they knew that all they had to do was slow Cam down, stop Cam. All the other offense begins to crumble. Defenses know that all they've had to do in the past is slow down or contain Lamar in some kind of way, and all the rest of the offense crumbles down because the part of the game that needed to be developed, which was passing, was never developed. Let me give you an example in Lamar's career, and we're done. Remember the Miami game where Miami seemed to run like a zero coverage? At least that's what it was called in the in-game analysis, like a zero coverage. And Lamar and Greg Roman couldn't figure out how to break through that. I can't remember if that was 2022 season or 2021 season. Anyway, you guys will remember it. Why didn't the Baltimore Ravens ever break through that style of defense? Because they had nothing left to reach to. Because that offense that he was in was so limiting, which is the same kind of offense for all the other guys I'm speaking of. That style of offense was so limiting. They didn't have no plan B. They didn't have any additional things they could pull from because they have not developed, had not past tense, had not developed the real passing part of the offense. And so it was a cap. So the Miami Dolphins could just walk to the line of scrimmage and play the same exact coverage. So it kind of came off as that Lamar didn't know what he was doing, but really it was the style of offense he was in. And I know some of you may be saying, well, Lamar Jackson has a new OC. I know he has a new OC. And I think things will be different. But the point I'm talking in this series is that when you are labeled at the onset a dual threat quarterback, if your team accepts that label, they'll handle you a certain type of way, which will only get you a certain type of result. So listen, stay tuned for the response video to your comments. Do me a quick favor, hit like, subscribe, even share this with a friend, man. This content is Ravens oriented, but it can certainly be extended out to all teams, all over the league, because a lot of teams have mobile quarterbacks. And again, they're not the same, but there are some other dual threat guys, which we'll get into. Man, I'm your guy, Boulanger. This is the GM, and we're out.